Welcome back to the Fan Speak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown. And this is the short slate edition. This time we are talking week 15 short slate, and we are talking about the Saturday only slate, which is very exciting. And then we will get to, of course, the Sunday short slates, which of course is we've got early only, I believe, 7 games because we have Thursday night and 3 on Saturday and Sunday night and Monday night. That leaves us, I believe, 10 games. Did I do the math right, Steve?
Yeah.
On Sunday. So we've got a 7-game early only, a 3-game afternoon only, and we will talk it all through. We're spending a lot of time on the Saturday only. So I'm, of course, joined by my brother, Steve. Steve, how are you doing? What are you thinking about? I mean, the NFL graces us with a Saturday after college football, before the bowl games start, graces us with these like Saturday slates, which is cool and fun and allows us for more short slate action. So how are you feeling about week 15 in this short slate?
Yeah, no, not only is this short slate, we've been talking about it the last couple of weeks, but this is just like Thanksgiving where it's 3 separate times. It's not like short slate on Sunday where once the slate starts, all those games are live, where you can make the pivots. Something starts going wrong and you have somebody you think is chalky, and from a later game, maybe you pivot out and do something different. So, there is that element here with late swap, just to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about the Saturday only slate we've got a lot of backup quarterbacks. So we have 2 starting quarterbacks with Jared Goff, Russell Wilson. Other than that, all backup quarterbacks. I mean, the nature of the slate, does that make you like it more, like it less? What do you think?
Well, I do think the good news is prices are down, not just at the quarterback position, but they're down at receivers. I mean, we have receivers like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, even Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra. They're all, very reasonable. I think if it was a bigger slate, if they're playing with their elite quarterbacks, we would have seen their prices higher. So I think that helps. And same with, there's no running back that's crazy. Like, for instance, on Thanksgiving, you had to pay up for Christian McCaffrey. You had to pay up for CD Lamb. There is none of that. So it allows you to kind of do what you want, build the way that you want. If you want to lock in one guy and say, I want to get this player, you can. And it's just much more easier to build around it than, say, Thanksgiving. If you're saying, I need to build, I want to build around Christian McCaffrey, which, of course, was the right play on that slate.
Well, with the 3 games, and why don't we, now would be a good time to bring over the Saturday special I have pulled up. But we've got Minnesota, Cincinnati as the first game, 1:00. Then 4:30, Pittsburgh, Indy. Then the night game, the late night hammer, we've got Denver, Detroit. So, I mean, you kind of got the best game, in my opinion. Obviously, the 2 starting quarterbacks, obviously plenty of weapons in that game for the night game. So with all that said, let's kind of break it down, kind of like we do in our survey, like stacks, values, what could be more contrarian, that kind of stuff. And then we'll like build a shell lineup. But I'm going to hit you with it first. What is Detroit, Denver, what you want to stack up the most, or do you want to be more contrarian as far as like the games you focus on? Because when you had a very successful Thanksgiving slate, you said right on this show, right on our articles and everything, you said, I'm stacking the Washington, Dallas every way possible and overstacking it. And you did, and it worked. And so do you see yourself, overstacking any one game a lot of times? And if so, what game would that be?
So I actually think in this slate, I would approach it a little differently. I think there's a case to be made for any of these 3 games. So I would honestly, if I'm building like 5 different lineups, I would have one lineup kind of focused on each game, and then like 2 lineups that are a mix match of the 3 different games. Is the way I would approach this.
That makes sense.
Doing 5 lineups, just because I don't feel like as confident in any one team, and especially any one side. Like, in that game, like we knew Washington was going to throw the ball. That was the only thing they were going to be able to do, because they're going to play from behind. We knew Dallas could do whatever they want, but they were going to throw the ball. And we just knew that, multiple of their various pieces were going to get there. And even though CD Lamb didn't, like others did. So, in this kind of case, like the two starting quarterbacks that we have, Goff and Wilson, I don't think either one will be the highest owned. I think it's probably going to come in Jake Browning, a little bit of Stavings, and just he's shown a little higher upside. They've also done QB sneaks with him each of the last 2 weeks to steal a touchdown away from Joe Mixon. So, you have that kind of aspect to his game, that if they get on that 1 yard line, they will give him cracks at it. So that can be a big difference maker. And just he does have these elite weapons against the Minnesota secondary that play a lot of because they blitz so much. Their guys are on an island, and you don't want to be on an island with the Jamar Chase. I don't care who the quarterback is. So or T Higgins. I mean, T Higgins looked pretty good last week. So I just would approach it. But there's obviously ways that Jake Browning and the Bengals can fail. So there's just ways that any game could get there, any game could fail, any side could get there. So I would just approach it that way from the overall perspective. But,
I think that makes a ton of sense. If like you gave the example, if you have 5 lineups, kind of do one game stack with 3 of them, and then kind of maybe mix more of the other 2. I think that kind of is a good way to approach it because, for the people that are only doing like 3 to 5 lineups, I think that's a very interesting way to approach it. I will say that if I were to do if I could only do one game stack, for me, it would probably be Minnesota, Denver. And if I could I may do 1 or 2 lineups where I onslaught Detroit. I could just see this being, yes, I have very much best ball bias to this comment, but because I'm very heavily invested in all of Detroit and need Detroit this week. But, they're back at home. They historically play much better at home. They need to, kind of get back on track, need to get the offensive back on track. And I think they can against Denver, honestly. I think outside of last week, they've been in domes for a lot of their games, and most of their dome games, they do put up in the 20s to 30s. And I don't see any reason why they can't get into the 30s in this game. We talked about on the betting show before this. You can go watch that on the FanSpeak Network, the NFL betting card. But Tyler liked the Detroit team total. I do too. I just like this for a bounce back spot. And I don't mind like taking, 4 pieces from Detroit in some lineups. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think if there's any team it would be the Lions. They have probably, the best tight end, or tied with TJ Hawkinson as the best tight end on the slate. They have a wide receiver who is, just a tick below Jefferson and Chase and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And they have 2 of the best running backs on the slate in Montgomery and Gibbs. So, they have some cheap flyer weapons like Reynolds and Williams. So, you absolutely can get 3-4 pieces from them plus Goff and feel really good about it for sure.
Yeah, I kind of like that as one approach. Okay, now let's break down before we build a shell lineup. Now let's break down your favorite like spend ups. You had kind of mentioned Chase. Is he your favorite spend up, or who's your favorite spend up on this slate?
Yeah, I think for me, even though it's nice to see Justin Jefferson back, and I do think Nick Mullins is probably going to be better for him than Josh Dobbs. I would rather go with Jamar Chase, followed pretty closely by Michael Pittman. I think Pittman's just target share has been great. It's just Minshew's just been a total roller coaster. Some weeks he's more on target, and Pittman is very fantasy viable. Other weeks, he's still getting the 12 plus targets, but he's only catching 8 of them for 70, 80 yards, which just, given his price, is not what you need. So
his floor ceiling combo is just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, his floor is good, but in this type of thing, like him getting 14 points, 15 points is probably going to bury you, just given all the other quality receivers around there. A T Higgins or one of the Steelers guys could get those.
But in this game, I definitely could see him getting in the 20s or
exactly. So I like him second, but Chase would be my number 1 for sure.
Okay. I'm with you on that. I mean, I think it's wild because you have the 4 top receivers, Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And by the way, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the one who has the best quarterback. You could say what you want about the quarterbacks on the slate, but he has the best quarterback throwing to him. So, I think that's interesting. I know in underdogs drafts, he was usually going first, probably for that reason. He didn't have the last 2 games have not been impressive, but before that, he's right there with the rest of these alphas. So you've got Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jefferson, we assume, coming back. Amon St. Brown, Chase, Pittman that you mentioned. Sutton's just been a touchdown machine, hopefully for our best ball shares. He continues that. And it's kind of just been Russ's go-to guy. If we think Detroit puts up points, I don't think it can just be game manager Russ, and I think they're going to have to get Sutton. So I think Sutton in like those Detroit builds is a good bring back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm with you. I think my favorite spend up is probably Chase, but I'm going to be rotating through all those top 4 or 5 receivers and trying to get at least 2 in most lineups. Maybe some if I can get 3 and go cheap elsewhere. I'm interested in that. Okay, so you don't have like my favorite stack is like a Goff, 2 or 3 weapons. Do you have a favorite stack? Like, would it be Goff for you too in a bounce back at home, or do you have another favorite? So would you rather pay down for like a Browning?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't mind doing Browning Chase. I think there's just a lot of upside there. I think they're going to have to throw to beat Minnesota, and since he's in this playoff race, they're at home. So yeah, I mean, since he's in this playoff race with how a lot of these other teams have lost, in the AFC, and not only that, some have lost some key players. So yeah, they're without Joe Burrow, but they're still fighting for a wild card spot, and I think they're gonna really try and go for it. And Minnesota is as well, but just with the Bengals being at home, I kind of like them in this spot.
All right. And favorite, okay, so we covered favorite kind of stacks, favorite spend ups. How about favorite values across the board in any position? Do you have any favorite value plays in any of the positions?
So the one thing I like is there's a lot of value at the running back position.
That's why I pulled up running back. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, Ty Chandler is just fantastic value.
Has Madison been rolled out yet?
Madison is been fully rolled out.
Okay, good. Sorry, I didn't mean to say good, but you get what It's good to know the information.
And the Bengals have been more susceptible on the ground than honestly through the air overall.
Okay.
And Chandler can be a dynamic, two-way back. So I like him a lot. Both Steelers running backs, we know the Colts run defense has just been atrocious, both giving up big plays on the ground and again through the air to backs. We saw both Cincy backs just absolutely demolish them. They're combined. I mean, both Cincy backs were massive fantasy plays last week. Massive.
Right.
So,
right.
Honestly,
and has that been pretty much Colts all season to the running back position?
we saw the week before, Derrick Henry demolishing them. He gets hurt, and then Spears has a big game the rest of the way. So it's just been, Cleveland when they played a few weeks, about a month and a half ago, both backs kind of got there like against them. Like it's just been something. So I would not be surprised, especially as we know with the Steelers quarterback situation, just see both backs getting the work. We know they both will. They'll both get some catches. They're both going to get, probably 10 plus carries, and both are explosive players. I mean, people harp on Jaylen Warren, but it's actually Najee who leads the team in explosive runs. So
No, I like those calls at the running back position because I kind of alluded that I want to get 2, if not 3, high priced receivers. How am I going to do that? Well, it's probably going to be playing 2 of maybe these running backs. So I have no problem with that, though I do. And I know you and I both love David Montgomery in a likely positive game script. So,
and he probably has just as good of matchup. Denver, they've been better against the pass, but they still struggle against running backs. Obviously Montgomery's splitting with Gibbs, but Montgomery still gets like the lead share of carries, especially if it is a positive script. And he still gets catches and he still gets targets. Even when they were down against the Bears, he was still getting runs and targets late in the game. So it doesn't even go all Gibbs, as some people might think. So
right.
I like Montgomery for sure in this.
Okay. Any other value plays across the board? Wide receiver at tight end.
Yeah. I mean, at receiver, quickly. At receiver, I think you could look at kind of the one of the lower Detroit guys, Reynolds, particularly. Alec Pierce has gotten 6 targets 2 of the last 3 weeks. Steelers secondary has been a mess and has struggled some against deep shots. So maybe you get lucky. And again, this is a 3-game slate. We don't need we're not looking to get 20 points from every player necessarily in
Right.
this type of thing. So at 3,500, if that's what's getting you what you need, and he gets 12 points, that could be enough.
Yeah. No, agreed. And what about a tight end position? We probably, if possible, would want to spend up for Laporta or Hawkinson, but in some builds, would you be willing to go down to like a Tanner Hudson?
Yeah, I just think the only issue is with Hudson and the Colts situation is they both rotate
So many
their
tight
four
ends.
tight ends that
Yeah.
it's very frustrating. Kyle Granson probably should have had the touchdown for the Colts last week. It ends up going to Mo Alley Cox.
Mm-hmm.
Tanner Hudson, same thing. Like should he did get a touchdown last week, but I mean he should have had more catches. Drew Sample, I think, had more targets than him last week.
Yeah.
It's that kind
Tough.
of it's just tough when you have Hawkinson, Laporta, who are true alphas, and Freiermuth could be as well, especially in a game where the Colts, like I said, they gave up a lot to tight ends last week against the Bengals. So
Yeah.
would not shock me to see Freiermuth get a little bit more work this week.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think we covered, the ways to break out like different game stacks, favorite values, favorite spend ups. Now let's build a shell of a lineup. Or before we build a shell, any final like just strategy thoughts? Like, I mean, I talked about one strategy is I may do one or two. If I did 5, I may do 1 or 2 where I'm very heavy on Detroit, whether it's Detroit and Denver heavily in that game, or maybe just Detroit and just with Sutton coming back. But is there any other like kind of macro strategies that you're really trying to focus on in this Saturday slate before we build a shell?
Well, one other thing I'd point to is what's interesting is I think given the state of all these quarterbacks and these situations, we actually can take any defense.
Yeah, great point.
We've seen Goff have just some really awful games, even some games where they won, or even where games where he produced, like the Thanksgiving game against the Packers. He got sacked a bunch, had some turnovers. The week before against the Bears, he had multiple turnovers, so took a couple sacks. So we could see Denver defense produce. We can obviously see the Lions. Any of these ones for sure could be in play. So
that's a great
do
point.
not be afraid to pick any defense. Obviously, the Bengals will probably be fairly popular given it's Nick Mullins and doesn't have a huge track record in the NFL.
But if that's chalky, I really don't mind some of these other defenses, or like you said, going to any defense to save money. That's going to be my last piece in. And oh, by the way, you can play it against even if you have 3 players from the team that they're the opposing team, or even a quarterback stack. Like you said, Goff could have a couple turnovers, but still put up, the highest amount of DK points in his stack and everything. And you still might want the Broncos defense to save money. And if all the defenses are kind of within a 3 to 5 point range, that might be what you want to do to save, $600-900, whatever it is. So I have no problems doing that. That's what's so great about short slate.
And just a quick example is a 2-game slate, but Monday night with the 2 games, Dolphins defense, you wanted them. They got the quick touchdown on Will Levis, but Will Levis ended up being the quarterback.
I totally forgot about that. Great point. Excellent point. And excellent point that like any defense is literally in play. I mean, I know really you can make it defense is so volatile you can, but in this slate, you don't have to squint to see it, So let's build a shell. I'll let you go first. And let's build a shell of a lineup here for the Saturday slate.
Well, I'm going to start because I do actually think we could see kind of similar to Thanksgiving is I think Detroit gets right through Sam Laporta.
Oh, nice.
I think
your lips to God's ears based on our best ball shares, right?
I think he could have a big game. So I like paying up for tight end this week with Laporta being my top guy.
Love it. Well, I'm going to do the quarterback that I think is in the bounce back position, tied to Laporta and the best quarterback on the slate. Yes, could these other backups, just like Levis outplayed, Tua and Jordan Love? Sure. Could they put up more points? Of course. But I like Detroit's offense to bounce back and the passing it to be, Goff, Laporta stack to be the one you want. So I'm going to put Goff in next. So what do you got for me next?
I really like Jamar Chase. So I'm going to go Jamar Chase.
Yeah, you said that was your priority spend. So let's get that in there. Well, let's put in a dummy defense. Just so, I mean, we can even do Broncos against Goff. I don't care. Just put that in for dummy. But I'm going to go save us some salary here, Steve. And you may have to do multiple, but we talked about running on Indy, and we talked about people, rag on Najee Harris, but he actually does have does he have the most explosive plays for a running back?
This was 2 weeks ago, but he was leading the league in 15 plus yard runs.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I knew it was something.
He's gone down since, but he was leading the league, and he's obviously splitting time, unlike the other backs who are near the top, like Christian McCaffrey.
Right, exactly. So, excuse me, he's up there in explosive plays, and against this Indy defense at 5,100, people are still enamored with playing Warren over him. I'm going to go Najee Harris. So right now let's throw one more in. We've got Goff, Najee, Chase, Laporta. This is the Goff Laporta stack, and Broncos defense 55 essentially a little over 5,500 left. Why don't you throw one more in there, and I'll let you do that.
Well, I do think a Cortland Sutton bring back makes a lot of sense here. Detroit's secondary has had a lot of issues, and Sutton has been the guy. So
I'm going to go Cortland Sutton. I love this. I love this shell. I mean, I think this is going to be my shell that I would start with for my, if you're saying, okay, here's your first build, this will be the shell I'm working with. Because you could certainly throw in either a higher price like ASB or a lower priced receiver. If it's higher price ASB, you'll probably have to get cheap with your second running back and flex. If it's a lower price receiver, it can be more balanced. But I like approaching it both ways. Mm-hmm. And I think the shell is definitely, one that I'll be working with. So I like it. Now we're going to do a quick look at early only, afternoon only, and then Steve will be dropping some quick thoughts on that on fanspeak.com. His quick thoughts on the early only afternoon slate. We'll have that up Saturday, but let's just take a quick peek at it. Yes, just like Thanksgiving, we're kind of tuned in and focused on the Saturday slate, and then you quickly turn your attention to getting ready for the Sunday early only, afternoon only. But let's take a quick look now, like our first look at that. And let me, while I'm talking about that, talk about the 7 games, Steve, that,
So I think real quick with the 7 games, just with the way that the slate falls, we don't have a lot of big time quarterbacks in good spots. Tua obviously against the Jets, and also likely bad weather, and no Tyreek. Mahomes. New England.
That's not official yet, is it?
No, but definitely not official. But whether no Tyreek, limited Tyreek, whatever. Yeah. I mean, again, he was terrible against the Jets last time. I'm not expecting. Yeah. I'm not going to pay up for Tua. In this spot.
I'm sorry. I just need Tyreek for baseball. So I was like, whoa, wait, something didn't happen yet, did it? Sorry, go ahead.
Mahomes at New England, I doubt he has a monster game here. CJ Stroud might not play against Tennessee, and then Justin Fields, Cleveland. So to me, I don't love another game that could have a low weather impact. So I really like going to, I know he had a bad Monday night game, but I like going to Jordan Love against Tampa. I'd rather target that terrible Tampa secondary. We saw Ritter just kind of shred them. So why can't Love? Even without Watson, we do need to see how his receivers are healthy. Hopefully Jaden Reed is not as sure about Wicks, but his receivers are cheap, so you can easily double stack him, with Musgrave and Dobbs and Reed, at least get 2 of those guys. Also sounds
is Musgrave back, or is it Kraft?
I'm sorry, not Musgrave, Kraft. Yeah. So you can get at least 2 of his guys, which is nice, but that allows you to do a lot. But other quarterbacks are not great. I mean, you can play Will Levis against Houston. You can play Flacco against Chicago, but again, there's some weather concerns. We can take a ride on the Tommy DeVito train, but the Saints, Saints defense, it doesn't allow a ton of points. They typically play slow, so I don't truly love that. There's just not a lot of great quarterback play with so many backups, so many some bad weather games, some key
I
guys.
was going to say, if you look across the board here at the weather, and of course, obviously use what other sources you use for NFL weather, but, and of course, watch the totals on the books and see if they're coming down and that kind of stuff. But it just might not be ideal conditions in December. And we only have a couple dome games. Let me just read the games really quick to note that Atlanta, Carolina could be weather, Cleveland, Chicago, Chicago at Cleveland could be weather. Tampa, Green Bay, probably just cold. Jets, Miami doesn't have anything, but I believe there could be some weather there.
Yeah.
New Giants, Saints in a dome. Houston, Tennessee could have some rain, and Kansas City, New England, probably just cold. But to that point, I mean, a lot of low totals, a lot of backup quarterbacks. It's not a a very exciting slate, I wouldn't say, but there's still money to be won. So you pointed out the Love Reed stack and some of the other ones you might consider. So who would probably be, if you could name two other stacks, who would be two other stacks that you would probably turn to in this short slate, 1 p.m. or early?
I probably would turn to Levis Hopkins. I mean, that's the only guy he throws to, so that works. But I do like Derrick Henry in this matchup as well. But I have no problem going Levis to Hopkins. And then, it's scary to keep going back to the Joe Flacco well.
I was going to say, you got a Joe Cool here, huh?
But Joe Flacco, and I know this past week was Njoku. I would probably lean more towards Amari Cooper in this matchup, but I could see making the case for Njoku, and Elijah Moore's cheap also, and obviously he goes back to the Jets with his time with Flacco. So any of those three could work, but Cooper would be the priority, I think.
Okay. And just quickly to cover kind of some of the, let's quick hitter questions here. Go through some of the other that we usually have in the survey. And again, Steve will have some notes up for early afternoon only on fanspeak.com on Saturday. Priority spends, running back, you've got Kamara, Barkley, Mostert, the Dolphins running backs, Henry up the top at receiver, Hill, TBD on his status, Mike Evans, Waddle. Obviously, you got like Cooper and Hopkins, who we mentioned within the stacks. Nico Collins, I'm guessing likely will be out. Chris Olave, DJ Moore's questionable. A lot of questionable pieces to watch too. But who are your priority spends? Just kind of name off a couple.
Yeah. So for me, and this is partly why I really like the Love stack here, is I'd love to get three top running backs. And Mostert, I think, is in a great spot, especially if the chain is out. But I love Rashard White in this spot against Green Bay. Bijan Robinson, I think, is my favorite. Carolina has been somebody to target for backs all year. Yeah. If you go down the list, Stevenson's likely out again. It's not official yet, but Ezekiel Elliott, even against Kansas City, I like him. We need to see both Cleveland backs are banged up, but I think if we get clarification, they probably both will play. Ford should get more work, but I think they're both fine plays. And same with both Kansas City backs. Pacheco will likely be rolled out, and I think they're both in play as well if you need a little bit of savings. But yeah, all the guys at the top really: Kamara, Barkley, Mostert, White, Henry, Bijan are all just fantastic.
Okay, so
plays. I want to get two of those and one of the cheaper guys. So
Gotcha.
I'd probably likely be doing a lot of 3 RB builds.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and you said Bijan was probably your favorite. Mostert, Bijan, like that a lot. Favorite spend up receiver?
Probably, if anyone, Mike Evans. If we know for sure Chris Olave is playing, I like him. And then Hopkins would be the next one. So, and like I said earlier, it's not even that high, but I like Amari Cooper. Rashid Rice is, we've seen kind of that post-buy rookie bump that we always talk about in the offseason. It's definitely happening for Rashid Rice. His target share has just gone up big time. So, I like those
10,
guys.
9, and 10 targets the last 3 weeks. I like that a lot, especially only still 6.1 Okay, yeah, a lot of injury news to watch on this 1 p.m. only. So check out Steve's
And
article.
the
Go ahead.
one last thing I will say is I do really like Kelsey in this spot. Tight end is a wasteland.
Hmm.
In this week, maybe we get Darren Waller back, maybe Taysom Hill, but just a lot of bad spots for these guys. Kelsey doesn't even have to do much, and he could blow these guys, the rest of the tight ends, out of the water. And honestly, because the receivers are so bad, it's not even like you're conceding a lot, even if he only has like a 19-point game.
Hmm.
Most of the receivers at the top might be lucky to get 19 points.
Right, right. Okay, well, I think we covered some of the stacks. We're interested, again, watch weather, watch injury news. Those are the two biggest things for this early only slate. But you covered some of the stacks you like, some of the values, especially in the running back area, some of the top plays and top spends that you like throughout all the positions. So again, check out the full thoughts on fanspeak.com on Saturday with the survey. We will have a Saturday only survey up on Friday. We'll have a early only, afternoon only Steve's thoughts on Saturday. So check all that out on fanspeak.com. Let's just take a quick peek at the afternoon only before we get out of here. This one, we have the big marquee game. So 7 in the early window. Oops, I went to the Saturday special. My fault. We've got 3 in the afternoon window. And of course, Steve, we've got the big marquee game of the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys. So that one is going to be big. Let me find the right tab. Early only, afternoon only. Okay. So of course, we've got Dallas, Buffalo. We've got Washington coming off the bye. LA Rams, you usually want to target Washington defense and secondary. And then, of course, we've got the high-powered 49ers offense against the Cardinals. So a lot of offense to like on this one. Only 3 games and 6 teams, but, honestly, I think a lot more to like, even though it's less
Absolutely.
games on this one. So what do we do here? Are you like prioritizing like Stafford stacks because of the Washington secondary, or you really want to target that Dallas Buffalo game? Or I'm sure probably a little bit of both is the answer, but go ahead. Tell me how you're going to break it down. Like, do you kind of like how you did for Saturday night? If you had 5 lineups, how would you work your stacks?
So yeah, I mean, if I had 5 lineups, I am. It's slightly different because I don't care as much about Arizona and Washington side. I think there's 1 or 2 players from that you could take from them, but I definitely want major builds from San Francisco, Rams, Dallas, and Buffalo, and then probably one where I'm kind of intermixing a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, these 4 teams really profile extremely well. What is interesting about Stafford is he has been playing a lot better again since the bye, since he got healthy, since Kyron Williams came back, Cooper Kupp came back to being a little healthier. So
touchdown variances broke his way finally
yeah,
too. He had no touchdown variance at the beginning of the season, and then finally last 4 weeks, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns as far as passing touchdowns. So certainly think in the betting market, you should look and see what his 3 touchdown, 4 touchdown ladder is, because Washington secondary is certainly one to target there. So
yeah.
I
What's
like that.
wild is he's actually lower priced than Howe and Kyler Murray. So he's the lowest price starting quarterback.
Oh my goodness, you're right. That's wild. Yeah.
So
No,
I do think that will mean his ownership
yeah.
might end up being the highest, just because everyone wants to jam, the 49ers guys, Cowboys,
Get pieces
Bills,
of,
and of
yeah.
course his guys as well. So
So if you had 5 stacks, you probably would do 1 Allen stack, 1 Dak stack, 1 Purdy stack, 1 Stafford stack, and then maybe do like I'm guessing another Dak stack with like a big Dallas Buffalo like game
yeah,
stack or
yeah,
something like that. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, well that covers the stacks and that makes sense. I mean, I certainly don't think you could rule out if like, Murray or Howe are incredibly low owned. I think especially
Oh,
how
sure, they have upside. I mean,
they have upside, and then they're
Murray's run for it. Howe's run for it lately. We know what
exactly.
Purdy's been doing. I mean, all these guys
Yeah.
can get there.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And yeah, these guys they're gonna be pushed to, probably throw at a high rate. So I think that's
so I actually
something.
think ownership will get spread out enough on
Yeah.
this because there's enough case to be made for any of these quarterbacks. I do
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah. So you think ownership will be spread out amongst all 6
Yeah.
quarterbacks. Okay. Okay. So you can make a case for all 6 quarterbacks, but you obviously like the top 4 the best. Who are same questions as before, just quick hitters. Who are your favorite spend ups on the slate? I mean, massive spend ups across the board. McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Tony Pollard at the top of the running back board. Lamb, Diggs, Kupp. Debo's been out of his mind. Puka Nacua, at the top of the receiver board. And then you've got George Kittle, who can always, go ham at the top of the tight end board. So who are your priority? If you had to say, these are my 2 priority spends that I'm trying to get in any lineup, no matter what quarterback stack, who would they be?
I mean, well, it's next to impossible, but with any quarterback stack. But I think an interesting thing to do would be McCaffrey and Kyron Williams, because running back gets very thin, very fast, and guys like Pollard, Cook has been great, but he's got an extremely tough matchup. And Brian Robinson is coming off the injury and just could be game scripted out. We've seen that to an extent, especially if Howell keeps stealing his rushing, his goal line touchdowns. So that's just a way to do it, because the fact of the matter is, any of the receivers, Lamb through Ayuk could be wide receiver 1. But those are the 2 backs that have that 30+ point upside. So if you get both of them and they both put up the 30-point games, Pollard, as good as Pollard's been, he just, he only has like 2 games over 20 points this year, and they've been barely over 20. He's just been a solid, steady Eddie 14, 15, 18-point guy. And so, he's cheaper, but McCaffrey and Williams could triple that.
I'm just seeing if you can even do like a reasonable stack with those 2. It gets real thin. Any suggestions? Because I was just trying to do those 2, put a cheaper, viable defense, a cheaper tight end, and see what you can do. Any thoughts on how to do that?
Well, you do have to take some cheaper shots at receivers from these games, and hope that it's like, say like Thanksgiving, like a Curtis Samuel is doing some work coming back, or in the Dallas side, or I'm sorry, in Washington versus the Rams, or like Khalil Shakir has the 100-yard game, not Diggs or Gabe Davis, and or like a Michael Gallup we saw last week.
I just put in Cooks as
you do have to take some of those types of shots. You're not going to be able to get like Lamb or Diggs with it,
right?
But it is doable. But boy, it gets ugly. There's no question about that.
If you didn't, I guess McCaffrey, you could fade McCaffrey. That's always incredibly scary. But if he does have like a 19 or 22-point game like he did the last couple of weeks, the floor is always amazing. But if he doesn't have a ceiling game, you could say I'll fade McCaffrey to get 1 or 2 of the spend up. So that's another way to approach it too. So anyways, any final thoughts? We're mixing and matching here, just showing the different things you can do. I almost think the 4 o'clock window is obviously way more enticing for offense, but it's harder to make a build that you love, because you're going to have to make some hard stands, would be my summary. Like, what would be your summary, or any other macro strategies you're considering to round out the?
I think the 4 o'clock window is tougher in that regard, just because you're going to have to fade a big name who has either great target share or just the true 30-point upside in a great spot. Like even the Bills players going up against Dallas, yes, it's the toughest matchup on the slate, but we know their upside. We've seen them, even going back years, playing against elite defenses, putting up big games. We know what Diggs is capable of. We know what Davis is capable of, in terms of like the true elite upside. So, it is scary to fade some of these guys, but that's how you differentiate, and that's how you can win. But at the same time, look, think again, just pointing back to a handful of weeks ago, Thanksgiving, you did not need CeeDee Lamb. You wanted to go down and pay down to Debo and have a little bit more balanced of a lineup. And that's to ensure you got Christian McCaffrey and ensure you got like a Sam Laporta at tight end, and it made you a little bit more balanced, and that's how you won. You won the biggest money. So
absolutely. Well, I think that's a pretty much is a good summary for Saturday only slate. some Sunday early only, Sunday afternoon only. It's a lot to consider. I actually probably like the Saturday only the best. But I think there's a lot to love, getting unique angles you could take for Sunday early and Sunday afternoon as well. Again, check out all our free articles on fanspeak.com. We'll Saturday only article. We'll have Sunday only early and afternoon thoughts. So check it all out on fanspeak.com. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Fanspeak Network on your way out. Thank you so much for watching. For Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.